Tonight, the historic rematch. Joe Biden and Donald Trump arrive in Atlanta, set to meet on the debate stage. The candidates trade blows ahead of the high-stakes showdown.
You're fired, Joe. Get out of here, Joe.
The threat that Trump poses is greater in his second term than his first.
Tonight, our new reporting, context, and analysis. The CBS Evening News starts now. The debate that could mark a turning point in the race for president just 5 months from Election Day. Good evening. I'm Norah O'Donnell in New York tonight, and thank you for being with us. Millions are expected to tune in for the matchup between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, the two meeting in the earliest presidential debate in history. It is a chance for voters to hear the candidates' vastly different visions for the future for America. And the contrast between the two could not be more stark in both policies and personalities. The one thing they have in common, however, is age. President Biden is 81 years old and Donald Trump is 78, making them the oldest candidates to ever meet on the debate stage. And you can bet that will be a topic. We have team coverage starting with CBS's Nancy Cordes in Atlanta.
President Biden was embraced by supporters after touching down in Atlanta this afternoon. Former President Trump got a hero's welcome, too, when he arrived a couple of hours later. The two men meet face-to-face tonight for the first time since their second presidential debate in 2020, nearly 4 years ago.
If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run.
You know his character, you know my character.
In a preview of the notes they hope to hit tonight, both candidates launched new ad blitzes today. Biden knocking Trump on abortion.
2 years ago, Trump overturned Roe v. Wade. Because of the abortion bans across the country, women's lives are at risk.
Trump knocking Biden on age.
Do you think the guy who was defeated by the stairs makes it 4 more years in the White House?
Going into this debate, of the 7 battleground states, 6 are currently rated as toss-ups, while 1, North Carolina, leans Republican.
He's relaxed, he's confident.
Danielle Alvarez is a senior advisor on the Trump campaign.
We expect President Trump to win because he's going to focus on record, his record.
One new feature tonight, a pair of green lights on each candidate's podium that will alert him when his microphone is on. The mic will shut off when it's the other man's turn to speak.
The question Supreme Court Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is?
It comes after Trump interrupted Biden or the moderator more than 100 times in their first debate in 2020.
That's just who Donald Trump is.
Biden advisor Cedric Richmond was part of the team that prepped with him at Camp David for the better part of a week.
We just wanted to make sure that he was prepared for the antics of Donald Trump and hearing lie after lie after lie and making sure that he's talking to the American people to make sure that they understand that he wakes up every day focused on them.
One open question tonight, whether these two men who have made no secret of their mutual dislike will shake hands when they walk on stage. They didn't in 2020, but that was due to COVID protocols at the height of the pandemic, Nora.
Nancy Cordes in Atlanta for us. Thank you, Nancy. Also in Atlanta, CBS's chief election campaign correspondent, Robert Costa, who has been speaking with both campaigns. And Robert, President Biden holed up for a week at Camp David. What does he need and want to accomplish tonight?
Great to be with you, Nora. For President Biden, according to conversations with his top advisors, it's not about so much addressing the age question. It's about the issue of the economy. Can he really broadcast tonight that he's on the side of working people, union members? And it's about bringing up the issue of American democracy. Former President Trump's character. Look for him to talk about January 6th, talk about Trump being now a felon based on that conviction in New York, and reminding voters that there's a character issue in this campaign. For Trump, I'm told it's about focus. Yes, he has his grievances, but it's also about the economy and immigration for him.
That's right. We've never had a twice-impeached convicted felon running for president. What about Trump? How has he been preparing?
I've been told that he's been deliberating, Nora, behind the scenes about whether to come out early with a lot of energy and, rhetorically speaking, take a punch. But look for him tonight to at least start on low simmer, because he believes he was perhaps too aggressive in 2020, interrupting then-candidate Biden, and paid a political cost with voters who like a little bit more of a conversation, civility when it comes to these debates. But we'll see if he can do that for 90 minutes.
All right, we'll see if there is a Donald Trump on low simmer. Robert Costa, I know you'll be watching with us tonight. Thank you. The battle over women's reproductive rights is taking center stage at tonight's debate. And today, just over 2 years after overturning Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court cleared the way for Idaho hospitals to provide emergency abortions, at least for now. CBS's Jan Crawford is at the Supreme Court.
A day after a draft opinion became public, the Supreme Court made it official, ruling that emergency abortions when a woman's health is at risk could resume in Idaho, at least for the time being. An unusual coalition of conservative and liberal justices joined to dismiss the case and let it play out in lower courts. Idaho is one of 6 states with restrictive laws that do not include any exceptions for a woman's health beyond saving her life, and Idaho doctors can be charged with a felony if they violate it. Since the law was enacted 2 years ago, 1/5 of the state's practicing obstetricians have left Idaho.
To have our kind of flip-flopping of how we practice is very hard for us, and I want to make it very clear. This doesn't mean, oh, you're going to get fined if you do this or that. It's 5 years in prison.
The Biden administration had sued Idaho to expand access, pointing to a federal law requiring hospitals to provide stabilizing care in health emergencies, care that could include abortion. Also today, the justices threw out a multi-billion-dollar bankruptcy settlement with the manufacturer of OxyContin that would have provided $6 billion for treatment and programs to combat the opioid crisis, including $750 million to victims and their families, in exchange for shielding members of the Sackler family from future lawsuits.
They need to be held accountable.
Ellen Isaacs, whose son died of an overdose, said the deal left the Sacklers off the hook.
Give me the ability to get a jury by trial of my peers.
She may now get that day in court after the 5-4 decision that saw conservatives and liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson joining to reject the plan shielding the Sacklers.
Now, the court will release more opinions tomorrow and again next week as it looks to wrap up its session before the 4th of July holiday. We are, of course, still waiting on those 2 major cases involving former President Trump, whether he can be prosecuted for his actions around January 6th, and if so, for what? Nora?
Very important. Jan Crawford, thank you so much. One of the top issues heading into the debate tonight is the economy. While unemployment is down and wages are up, so are mortgage rates and the price of groceries due to stubborn inflation, although they're starting to go down. CBS News senior business and tech correspondent Jolene Kent spoke with voters about what they hope to hear from the candidates themselves.
I want to keep building the strongest economy in the world.
Under Biden, the economy is in ruins.
What the candidates have to say on the economy is vital. Watching in Minnesota will be 2 working moms, both independent voters who are split on how they feel.
Are you better off now than when President Biden took office?
No, we can't sit down to dinner as a family without it costing a small fortune.
I would say that I'm better off now. It's not that much better, but definitely economically as a family, we are doing well.
Lon Huen plans to vote for President Biden again in November. Maddie Wallace, who voted for Trump in 2020 and Obama in 2008, says she's still undecided.
I don't know that I want a repeat of the last 4 years. I also don't know that I want a repeat of the 4 years before that.
CBS News polling found young voters overwhelmingly feel it's now harder to buy a house, raise a family, get a good job, or start a business. And despite a strong jobs market and low unemployment, both Minnesotans agree prices have gone up under President Biden.
The average American isn't looking at economic data. They're making the decisions based on, oh my gosh, I can't afford groceries.
From 2019, when Trump was in office, until now, the price of a dozen eggs has nearly doubled. A loaf of bread costs 53% more, and gas prices have jumped 32%. Tonight, voters will be listening closely.
We have to ultimately make a decision as to who we want to be as a country.
Another tough reality, housing prices have risen more than wages. And with just 1 interest rate cut expected this year, new mortgages are still too expensive for so many people. Nora.
All right, Jolene Kent, thank you. And we will have complete coverage of the first presidential debate hosted by CNN, followed by our expert analysis. That's coming up here on CBS right after the CBS Evening News. We hope you'll join us. There's breaking news from Uvalde, Texas. Former school police chief Pete Arredondo has been taken into custody more than 2 years after the shooting there. The San Antonio Express News reports a grand jury has indicted Arredondo and a second former officer on child endangerment charges. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed. Hundreds of officers waited outside the school for over an hour before confronting the gunman. Now a look at tonight's other top stories, starting with a frightening freight train derailment outside of Chicago. CBS's Suzanne Lumigno has new details.
No injuries have been reported after 25 rail cars derailed. Nora, I'm on Main Street, and this leads right to the train derailment. We've been seeing a lot of heavy equipment being moved in to help remove those mangled cars. Earlier in the day, about 300 people had been evacuated as a precaution. The train's owner, Canadian National Railway Company, says the cars were carrying a residual amount of propane. At this time, there's no danger to public safety, and residents are being told they can return home. And tonight, the cause of the accident remains under investigation.
And tonight, there's new trouble for Boeing. The aircraft maker slapped with sanctions from federal safety officials. The aerospace giant is accused of misconduct in the investigation into how that door panel came off an Alaska Airlines plane mid-flight in January. Here's CBS's Chris Van Cleve.
Nora, we're inside the Boeing 737 MAX factory. It's rare access. Boeing says at each step along this production line, they've made changes to improve safety and quality. But the NTSB says during this media tour, Boeing shared non-public details about the door panel blowout, violating the investigation's rules.
We know the move crew closed the plug. They did not reinstall the retaining pins. That is not their job.
The NTSB is now cutting off Boeing's access to investigative information and plans to subpoena company officials for an August hearing. Boeing says it deeply regrets comments intended to make clear our responsibility in the accident overstepped the NTSB's role.
Now overseas to Iran, where the country will vote for its next president on Friday. The election comes about a month after the country's last leader died in a helicopter crash. CBS's Liz Palmer reports now from Tehran.
61 million Iranians are eligible to vote here tomorrow, Nora. The real question is how many of them will actually turn out. There are 4 presidential candidates, 3 hardliners and 1 moderate, but all of them were approved by a panel of Islamic clerics. Government loyalists don't mind this stacked deck, and they will vote. But there are millions who have had it with hardship brought on by sanctions and a system that tolerates corruption and repression. Those people are likely to stay home in droves.
And tonight, 70 million Americans are facing a heat wave. That includes CBS's Omar Villafranca, who's in Texas.
The heat dome is baking parts of the South, and here in Plano, Texas, people are flocking to pools and splash pads to try to cool off as the feels-like temperature hits 107 to 111.
Cities from Atlanta to Dallas could see temperatures in the triple digits heading into the weekend. More rain is in the forecast for areas around the edges of the heat dome, including the flooded states in the upper Midwest, where more severe thunderstorms are ahead.
And thanks to our CBS News teams from around the globe, Eye on America is next with advertisers looking to mend the political divide in their outreach to consumers. So far, the 2024 campaign has been simmering with anger and contempt, and at tonight's presidential debate, it's likely to reach a full boil. In tonight's Eye on America, CBS's Major Garrett looks at the race for the White House through a different lens, not Pennsylvania Avenue, but Madison Avenue. The advertising world is betting that more Americans actually favor unity and compromise than division.
Everything Joe Biden touches turns to
That other guy, that loser.
The state of our politics inflamed, vulgar, antagonistic.
Anger and outrage are biologically addictive.
Jamie Schmelzer is not a mental health professional. Schmelzer sells sausage. as a marketing executive for meat processing giant Johnsonville.
We do not pretend that we have what it takes to save America. We know the world is full of serious problems that sausage can't solve. We couldn't keep up.
But Schmelzer and Johnsonville believe they're on to something.
What if instead of keeping it angsty, we all keep it juicy?
The company's new ad campaign begs Americans to turn down the temperature, to find common ground and chill.
Kiss outrage goodbye. Say hello to more outreach.
Is this campaign political?
We think this campaign is cultural more than political, but we also fully recognize that those two things have become kind of inseparable.
Johnsonville had a hunch the country was on edge. It took a stab at something politicians do, polling, and found that 8 out of 10 Americans are exhausted by the anger and negativity in the country, and that many Americans are getting together less than they used to.
Is isolation good for your product?
No. So Johnsonville makes hangout food. We like to say that sausage for one almost doesn't exist.
And it's not just Johnsonville preaching calm and togetherness.
That's great. It is both. It is both.
You can find similar echoes in Miller Lite and Lazy Boy's ad campaigns.
We're standing up for our right to be lazy.
Selling less fighting and more relaxation.
They're paying attention to our own thoughts as a society.
Andrew Cohen is a cultural sociologist who specializes in advertising.
It's a great place for these brands to play of saying, you know, we can't deny the reality that people are heated, that it's really hard to go to your family's cookout and not get in a fight with your uncle over some political views that you don't agree about.
We can find common ground.
We traveled to 2 battleground states, Georgia and Wisconsin, to show voters the ads and ask how they view the country.
Everyone in the country feels a little on edge.
Everybody's anxiety and emotions are high, and we just need to chill.
People seem to isolate themselves too much. Isolation, it's a bad thing, you know?
That matches Johnsonville's research and recent warnings from the Surgeon General about the, quote, epidemic of loneliness and the toxicity of social media.
It's a lot of drama everywhere. It is both.
The advertisers hope that bridge building and slowing down is a message that sells to an anxious nation in short supply of unity.
Laughter, our shared language again.
It's kind of a pep talk for America to remember to just make time, take a break, and have some fun with some people that you like.
When marketing wades into deep waters of national anxiety and estrangement, something has shifted. Something our summer of political strife is unlikely to settle. For Eye on America, I'm Major Garrett in Johnsonville, Wisconsin.
Sausage and bacon, these are things that can bring us together. All right, the NBA draft makes history, setting the stage for the league's first father-son duo. Breaking news tonight, NBA history. The Los Angeles Lakers have selected Bronny James in the second round of the NBA draft. He's the 19-year-old son of basketball legend LeBron James. This sets the stage for the first father-son duo playing together in the NBA. Bronny James was sidelined for nearly 5 months last year after going into cardiac arrest while practicing with the USC Trojans. Heart of America is next. Finally, tonight's Heart of America takes us to where Pride Month began. Tomorrow marks the 55th anniversary of the Stonewall Riots, a 6-day uprising that started after the New York City Police Department raided the Stonewall Inn in 1969. The riots marked a turning point for the gay rights movement in the United States. That's why current owners Stacey Lentz and Kurt Kelly started the Stonewall Inn Gives Back Initiative, a nonprofit that's committed to creating safe spaces for the LGBTQ community around the world.
We continue the fight that started here at the Stonewall Inn to make sure that we're funding and amplifying the voices of marginalized community members that live in those places where it's still tough to be LGBTQ+.
Stacey Lentz and Kurt Kelly, they are tonight's Heart of America. And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Norah O'Donnell in New York. CBS News' special coverage of the presidential debate is next.